I think we'll start. Good morning, everybody. I am going to.
Good morning.
Hi. I'm going to share the screen right now, and when we get back for discussion, we will get rid of the slide presentation. So.
And while we're waiting, I'll invite you to mute. We have a few people in the room, so until Diane or Phil invite you to have an open conversation, I'll just invite you to go on mute so we can hear Diane and Phil better.
Okay, and I apologize for this little gray bar. Every once in a while, it might show up on the bottom. That's what I'm going to use to help me advance my slides.
What?
So in today's Faith Forum, we'll talk about some resources offered by the Episcopal Church that can help us be more responsible stewards of God's creation. And as Jeff asked, please mute your microphone unless...
Proxy trying to watch, we get untangled this mess. Well, but we don't have to do it right now, do we?
Please mute your microphone.
Because
Jen, why don't you go ahead and start muting people?
It may be best to use the chat feature at the bottom panel for your questions. And you can also save questions for discussion later. Oh, I don't know why that happened. Okay, let's get on that. Going back in. Does everybody see that I'm not there? Okay, back. I don't know, my screen just changed. Feel free. It keeps going back to Mary Lou Kretzenstein on my screen. I don't know if that's anybody else.
That's just on yours because you're the host. I don't know why it's popping off sharing though.
Okay, well it's okay. I'll just kind of get back now. What does your screen look like? Because I won't mind as much if it's.
We do not see your sharing right now.
Okay.
Let's just. There we go.
Okay, let me try again. Phil is going to start us with a prayer, which we really need right now. Thanks, Phil.
Okay, so this is a simple prayer. We rejoice in all life. We live in all things live in us. We live by the sun, we move with the stars. We eat from the earth, we drink from the rain, we breathe from the air. We share with the creatures, we have strength through their gifts. We depend on the forests, we have knowledge through their secrets. We have the privilege of seeing and understanding. We have the responsibility of caring. We have the joy of celebrating. We are all full of the grace of creation. We are graceful, we are grateful, we rejoice in all life. Amen.
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 Thanks, Phil.
You're welcome.
Last week, Phil ended his very informative presentation with a compelling video of Greta Thunberg, a young activist who challenges us to be serious about our responsibility to God's creation. Oh, my slides have gone away. Okay. These are two of the people in my life for whom I work towards a healthy planet. Today, we will present the Creation Care Pledge and the Carbon Tracker. These are practical and personal opportunities to take actions that will help us counteract climate change as individuals and as a faith community. And we will end with questions for discussion. I think I just said that. Why should we make these changes a part of our life in these challenging times? Jane says it best.
Very often people say to me, but if this little insect disappears, surely it doesn't make any difference, does it matter? And the thing is that everything is interconnected, and that little insect might be the major food source of some other creature. who then might disappear as well. And so it goes on with this interrelationship. We call it biodiversity. I like to call it the web of life, all the strands forming a beautiful pattern. And that pattern is being destroyed. Here are all these problems which we've inflicted on the planet. And it brings me back to the sort of really important question. I've talked a lot about similarities in humans and chimpanzees, but clearly we're different. I mean, look, here we are, and you're listening to my words, and I'm telling you things. You may not want to hear them, but I'm saying them and you understand them. And the biggest difference, I believe, between us and chimpanzees is this explosive development of our intellect. I mean, chimpanzees can do things we thought that was impossible, but we just created a rocket a few years ago, which went all the way up to Mars, the red planet, and out came a little robot. And that little robot is still crawling around years later, taking photographs for scientists on planet Earth to see what it looks like up there. That's extraordinary. When I was a child, it would have been science fiction, but we've done it. So the question is, how is it possible that the most intellectual creature that's ever walked on planet Earth is destroying its only home? We're destroying Mother Earth so fast. You think perhaps we've lost wisdom? The wisdom that some indigenous people showed, making a decision based on how will this affect our people generations ahead. Are we too often making decisions based on how will this help me now, or the next shareholders meeting, or my next political campaign? Is there a disconnect between this incredibly clever brain and the human heart, love and compassion? And I truly feel that we can only achieve our true human potential, which is huge, if we have harmony between head and heart. It's not a bit surprising to me that as I was traveling around the world, I met many young people who seemed not to have much hope for the future. And many of them were angry. Some of them were violent. A lot of them were depressed. Most were just apathetic, didn't really seem to care much about anything. And when I asked them why they were feeling like this, they all said more or less the same. You've compromised our future and there's nothing we can do about it. We have compromised your future. When I see small children, I feel so ashamed and angry and desperate when I think how we've harmed the planet since I was that age. But is it true there's nothing that can be done? There are many biologists who will tell you so. But I'm not alone in saying we have a window of time, a window to start changing the direction. But it depends on changing attitudes. And if we could just get a critical mass of us who start to think about the consequences of the little choices we make each day, what we buy, what we wear, what we eat, how was it made? Did it harm the environment? Did it involve cruelty to animals or people, child slave labor, this kind of thing? And I think most people, even though they've become aware, do nothing because they feel useless and helpless and hopeless. They tell me so. So we just have to get it through to our thick heads that what we do as an individual, certainly in the big scheme of things, doesn't make a difference. But what we do collectively as billions of human beings making the right ethical choices, that's going to move us in the right direction.
And now, after we've remembered some of those important reasons, we'll move along to our response.
I'm Greg Rickle, the Bishop of Olympia, and I'm going to sign this pledge.
I'm Barry Weisner, Bishop of Northern California, and I'm taking the Creation Care Pledge because, like you, we're committed to following Jesus in the way of love.
Jennifer Ruddle, Bishop of the Diocese of Arizona, and I'm taking the Creation Care Pledge because Arizona has some of the most beautiful wilderness in God's creation.
I'm Scott Hayashi, the Bishop of the Episcopal Diocese of Utah, and I'm taking the Creation Care Pledge.
I'm Gretchen Rehberg, I'm the Bishop of the Diocese of Spokane, and I'm taking the Creation Care Pledge.
I'm David Rice, Bishop of the Diocese of San Joaquin, and I'm taking the Creation Care Pledge.
I'm Michael Hanley of the Diocese of Oregon, and I'm taking the Creation Care Pledge.
I'm Bishop Catherine Jefford Shorey in San Diego. I'm taking the Creation Care Pledge.
My name is Pat Bell. I am the Bishop for the Episcopal Diocese of Eastern Oregon. I also make the pledge to Creation Care.
I'm Brian Thom, the Bishop of the Diocese of Idaho. And I'm going to take the Creation Care Pledge because I need to up my own game.
We can all do something.
So we've entered the season of more and less. More composting, more cycling, more walking.
We recycle a lot at our house, but it's time for second generation of getting serious.
Think about composting all the food waste in your kitchen.
I vowed on the Creation Care Pledge to eat further down the chain.
Bishop Wagner got rid of all the styrofoam in our diocese. Nativity has gone to composting the coffee grounds, the coffee hour.
Less use of those things which are consumable like styrofoam.
Encourage your congregations to ditch the water bottles and the paper cups and the styrofoam and wash the dishes.
I personally, no more single-use plastics or getting rid of them.
Particularly, we care about water. So I know that as Bishop of Arizona, I will never use a single-use plastic water bottle.
It's time for us to get rid of those water bottles that are in every parish. We can do better than that.
I encourage you also to consider your own water use in your house, your home, your garden.
The one step I've taken already is to stop shaving in the shower. My shower now only lasts 3 minutes.
We're taking 80 acres at our camp conference center and returning it to native grasses and wetlands to bring some green to the earth.
We've been in a partnership with the Diocese of Southern Philippines for almost 10 years, doing carbon offsets with them, planting over 20,000 trees in the Southern Philippines, which has offset over 70,000 tons of carbon.
A few years ago, I had the ability to walk the Camino de Santiago. These places need to be protected, and the only way to protect them is to make sure we take care of God's creation.
God has helped us to enter into a relationship, a partnership in being stewards of this planet. It needs our help. It needs our attention now.
Take the Creation Care Pledge because this is God's creation, and we are called to take care of it.
So I invite you to join with me.
I invite you to
Join me.
I'd like you to join me.
Join me.
Please join me in this commitment.
So join me in the pledge, not in the shower.
You can learn about the pledge on the Episcopal Church Creation Care website. And there's also a link to the Creation Care Pledge that you can take. The pledge begins, as the Episcopal branch of the Jesus movement, we long to grow loving, liberating, and life-giving relationship with the whole of God's creation. Together we pledge to protect and renew the earth and all who call it home. Together we are living the way of love and make this commitment to specific actions. The document proceeds to offer many ways to act on this pledge, giving examples of how you can commit specifically to loving, liberating, and life-giving actions. For example, it begins in the category of loving. We will share our stories of love and concern for the earth and link with others who care about protecting the sacred web of life. Next, it invites, because I want to share my strong love of God and God's creation, I will, and it gives you an opportunity with several examples provided, including connect with others who are passionate for the care of creation, whether in our congregation, city, state, or church-wide. You might want to make a copy of the pledge so that you can later go back and see if you've stayed the course. When I completed the pledge, I didn't make a copy, so I'm hoping I'm still on track. The pledge was useful to me because it helped me think of additional ways to commit to creation care than I already held in awareness. And now a brief invitation from Presiding Bishop Michael Curry.
Greetings, Diocese of Olympia, and all who may be watching. As part of the Episcopal Church's commitment to caring for this earth we call home and being good stewards of the environment, Presiding Bishop Michael Curry has issued an invitation to reflect and commit to grow a loving, liberating, and life-giving relationship with God's creation.
I invite you to do some things that help to love the earth, that help to preserve the world, to do some things that actually love the world that God loves.
And now Jeff will share some of his thoughts about using the carbon tracker.
So thank you, Diane. There's what we're moving towards is this. It's actually an app from the Episcopal Church. It's a carbon tracker tool. And what's wonderful about it is that this app helps us move from what we profess, what we pray, to what we do. And so at St. Paul's Cathedral, of course, we have some wonderful statements of belief from the Peace and Justice Committee and from the larger church in both our prayers and our liturgies of creation, and in all of the statements of belief that you just heard about in Diane's presentation. And so there's a deep Anglican tradition of not only saying things, but doing them. And we say that praying shapes believing, praying shapes doing, and that these things are connected. So the tool that I imagine that we're getting ready to look at there's a tool called the Carbon Tracker from the Episcopal Church of the Diocese of Olympia. Greg Rickel, who you just heard from, who was my first seminarian supervisor in seminary before he was a bishop. I think they pioneered this platform. Allows you to go online, create a profile, and there's ways to do things that are easy all the way up to things that are a little more demanding, so that you can monitor your carbon footprint and take steps to reduce it, which of course is one of the best ways to have an impact on our creation, on our global collective ecosystem. So right now we have 2 households. The last time I checked, which was a few days ago, we had 2 households registered from St. Paul's Cathedral. So what we can do is, of course, you will see your individual impact and carbon footprint as you register and change, and then we'll also see our impact as a parish. We also see our impact as a diocese, if you will register for this app and then start to track the changes you're making as we go through it. I'm sure Diane will talk more about it. But one of the things that I might suggest is that, like for me, I imagine my carbon footprint right now is smaller than it was 3 months ago under stay at home. So I anticipate using this tool as a way to make sure that my carbon footprint doesn't expand as we move into the next phases of the getting back to normal kind of thing. And then not only that it doesn't expand, but looking for ways that I can continue to kind of shrink my carbon footprint from how I've already done that with stay at home. So I encourage you to take these steps so that we can live what we profess to believe, and do that not only individually, but also collectively as a parish, as a diocese, and as part of the Episcopal Church.
Thanks, Jeff. I'm going to share the screen again. So we can make a difference. Our changes can save money, improve our health, create local jobs, and lead us down the path towards our pledge. 40% of all carbon emissions in the United States come from 5 household activities that we can control. They are electricity use, home heating, transportation, food, and waste generation. We have accessible and affordable alternatives for most of these categories, or we will soon. The tracker is a geographically based tool since our experience of climate is local. Local resources can be shared and compared with the tracker. And it's a useful tool for renters as well as homeowners. We know that many of you are already doing some of the actions that are recommended by the tracker. It's easy and amazing how many other things are suggested that we can do. The use of the tracker is relatively simple. You create an account, you choose actions, you take action, and you work together with others in a small group or within the congregation, and you can track your progress and the congregation's progress and compare it with others. In the first screen, you will indicate your city, then your congregation. I'm not going to show you the actual screens because there are several of them and it might be complicated for me. But you will be able to get onto the tracker. You will indicate your city, then your congregation, which will show up as you start typing the names, and then you click sign up.
Could you tell us which carbon tracker? I'm looking on my phone and seeing 3 of them.
It's through the Episcopal Church.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So it's not in the App Store.
And I've just put the web link in the chat.
Thank you.
And I do have an option to take a screenshot of my resources page, and then we will have an article in one of the e-bulletins that has all that information. We just haven't gotten there yet. Next, you'll be brought to the sign-up page, which includes spaces for your email, name of your household, which is your username, your first name, last name, zip code, and there's a CAPTCHA, which is an I am not a robot box that you have to go through. And then you have to check a box to agree to the terms of their services. Then you click the Create a New Account button, and you're all set. You'll receive an email confirmation about your home, your transportation, and your habits. Then you'll answer general questions about your household. You'll be able to create a team with 5 or so households, for example, small groups within the cathedral. And you'll be able to see how many other people from St. Paul's have enrolled by their username, not by their whole name or their address or any other personal information. Next, you'll get to your calculated energy profile, which they will be able to do based on the information that you give them. This will show you 5 categories in which your energy use is broken down. In the future, the tracker will address actual energy costs. For example, if you purchase a product, if it's coming from near or far away, how much energy was used to transport it, or receiving a service like getting your hair cut, getting it blown dry, and the electricity used in that. You can find a grid inviting you to take actions that will help you lower your carbon footprint. When you decide to take an action, whether it's little or big, you will also estimate by date when you think you will complete the action. And it doesn't have to be, the police will not come and make sure you've taken care of that date. But it's just an estimate. It gives you a goal for which to reach. Once you take an action, you can share it with others on a post that you create within the tracker, and you can also post it on Facebook. The tracker indicates your level of action in comparison to the average household in your area. The level offers you a challenge. You can track your points, your progress, and financial savings. The goal is to get everyone to the highest level by 2030. Depending on your actions that you choose, you can save from $1,000 to $3,000 a year. So, and then you can really celebrate. In a current cathedral book study group, Following Jesus by Henry Nouwen. We are invited to follow Jesus in love. In many ways, creation care is a call to express that love in our actions, actions which we may contemplate taking today and in the future. Love for our neighbors in our community who suffer the personal, health, and economic effects of air and water pollution. Love for our neighbors in other countries who are currently displaced and will be displaced in the future because of rising oceans and waterways, and who suffer economic hardships because of the effect of climate change on their farmlands and infrastructures. Love for other living things whose lives are threatened by displacement or extinction. Love for the health and beauty of God's lands and waters. Love for the future of our children and their children and those who are to come. As individuals and families take action, we invite our own church to take action. We are all doing what we can. Now we must do even more. The coronavirus shows us what personal and global hardship can be. Climate change will challenge us even more. Our very lives and the lives of those who we love are at stake. But we can do this. I invite you to take a screenshot of this if you want to get started right away on your creation care journey. But we also hope to have today's links posted in an upcoming Cathedral e-bulletin. So I'll give you a minute to linger there. And sometime in the summer or fall, Simpler Living will offer a way to support and encourage folks who want to use the program. In next Sunday's forum, our another Simpler Living member, Roberta Price, who is an avid practitioner of Simpler Living, just like a mother, will suggest practical ways for participants to grow new and creation care friendly habits to help us reduce our carbon footprint. And let's end in our very own bioregion, the Pacific Coast at sunset. And I will stop sharing and ask if there are any questions that people have. Or just break into discussion, whatever.
The emails, the addresses you just had on the screen disappeared before we could write them down, and I don't know how to take a screenshot.
Oh, okay. Well, will you open the e-bulletin on Thursday?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, it will be there.
Thank you.
Or the following Thursday. I'm not sure.
Might I suggest you leave the screen up for just a few minutes so people might write it down now while it's on their mind?
I will do that.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
You don't need to look at the sunset anymore. Oops, how do I go back? Oh. Okay, got it. Resources. Okay. Okay, leaving it up. Any other thoughts or questions?
Does anyone recommend a good composter for a smallish sized home?
Simpler Living was looking into that, not coming up with very much, but I think my impression is that that might be changing. So I'm hoping we'll have more information on local composting. I know there was one up in, I want to say, Escondido. You had to take your compost up to them. But I'm wondering if we might even go the way of San Francisco and start, having more focused composting from restaurants and possibly individuals. So that's one of those things that I hope will be happening in the future. But there are people, maybe we could have kind of an e-page that invites people who use composted materials to take composted materials from individual households. That might be a possibility too.
Elizabeth?
I need it for my garden.
Yeah, Elizabeth?
Yes.
I thought I was unmuted. But anyway, are you asking about a composting bin for your yard?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. That's okay. That's another option. What you were just taking your compost somewhere. Yeah. I have one, but it's old and it's fairly large, so.
I was doing research online about them, and I discovered that they vary immensely, and there's one that's being promoted quite a lot that grinds up your stuff in the kitchen, but it doesn't allow for the bioactivity that makes it into real compost, so it's not a real composter. Anyway, there are things out there that really don't work, and so we have to be careful.
Yeah, if I can add to this discussion, in my household, Mary's the one that really kind of initiated the composting. So we have a big composter in the backyard. And one thing I kind of regret about it is it doesn't have a crank to rotate it. It's a big barrel, and it's on a frame, but you have to turn it yourself. And it gets really heavy, to be honest with you. It's I mean, I can turn it, but I have to lean into it. So I think there are composters that have cranks. I would strongly recommend the cranks. And then the other thing about it that isn't the greatest is it's completely sort of sealed, so it remains really, really moist in there. And we haven't even used it yet on the garden. It's still like it's just percolating in there. But anyway, I'm not an expert, but those are the two pieces of advice that I would.
Well, the good ones, the good expensive ones that I was looking at had a lot of ventilation in them.
That's better. Yeah, ours has some ventilation, but anyway.
This is Erica. I'd like to suggest maybe something else for folks to consider, and I'm going to put a link in the chat for something called vermicomposting. And this is using little tiny worms that will take your household garbage, but even also some like paper waste and stuff, and turn it into compost. And because it's a small setup that you can use even in an apartment. And that's what the speaker in this tiny climate challenge did. And I found it very entertaining at the very least. So you might consider this as another approach without some of the downsides. But you do get a fair amount of compost.
That idea. I like the ones with worms.
Yeah.
I don't know. I came later about the subject. My simple or humble suggestion perhaps is to care the environment and this subject in common. Not only, for example, recycle trash, but also could be maintain clean our area around our environment, our area where we live. Replant any plant, trees or flowers. Replant our garden. Collaborate to live clean our areas. Try to no use artificial element or no left any area artificial element to can down the could be harmful for the area, no? In general, perhaps to be live in harmony with the creation. Also, in general, I don't know. I came some later today. So it's just very interesting.
Thanks.
Diane, I have a question.
Sure.
Which is how long it took you online to do the carbon tracker? Because I have not yet done it, and I'm going to do it. But just think about that.
I'd say give it half an hour. And it might even be less than that for people who are comfortable with younger people, I should say, or people who are more computer savvy. Because there's a lot to explore on it, and you could spend a lot more time than half an hour. But to complete it, it's probably 15 minutes to enter all your information. The one thing I had an issue with, it wasn't an issue, but it will it will calculate your energy use if you share with them your bill, the username or the ID of your energy bill. So my husband doesn't go online for that, and so we don't have that opportunity. They find a way to calculate your energy use, just estimating, I guess. But I think it can be more accurate if you do share with them your energy ID through SDG&E.
You're saying that because the username is something you make up, that this is anonymous? I mean, people in the church wouldn't know who you were necessarily?
I use my last name, so I guess people would know that it's me. It's our family, but I didn't put my first name. And the other person who's on it, in fact, both of us are on this forum, which is kind of cool, I think. You might be able to identify. I thought I knew who that person was. So,
yeah, that would be. Diane was the first one in San Diego to sign up, and I was the second, and I just checked a little while ago, and we're still the only two. I will confess that I got bogged down. I got to the point where I thought you had to hand enter your electric bill information. And I didn't get around to going and looking for the bills and trying to find it. I think you can hand enter it because I don't think we have a username with SDG&E.
I'm joining right this minute and putting in the link to my energy bill. So maybe I'll be number 3.
Oh,
that would be great. Yeah.
If I don't beat you to it, I'm doing the same thing.
I feel defensive about our use of energy because we do get reports from SDG&E, and they point out that we're using more energy than other people who live around us. But then I look at the other people who live around us, and they're never in their homes, and they don't cook. And I cook. We have dietary restrictions. I have to cook, and we're here. So there are variable. Immediately I feel defensive about this, and I admit that. And we try to be careful, but we need to eat, and we're elderly, and in the summer it gets really hot out here, so we need to use air conditioning.
Right. Well, I think too that when things get back to what might be the new normal, you can always get an energy audit. Which I believe is free, and they can show you ways that you could cut back in your individual circumstances. Yeah. I mean, there's some things you can use. I know I was surprised that one of my sons didn't know about phantom energy. So that when you have things plugged in, do you know about this?
Yes.
Okay, well, there we go. There's one.
Can't unplug the refrigerator.
No, you're right about that.
Unplug the TV, you have to reboot everything.
And then these days, we're using our computers a lot more. So, and like you said, we're all home, so we're all doing things. I just baked yesterday and baked the day before. So that kind of adds to the energy use.
I save all the bones from everything and make stock, but then you have to simmer the stock for hours and hours and hours.
Sure.
One big change that many of us can make that would make a big difference is do a lot of cooking before 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, I do that.
Yeah. There are also some new technologies out there that maybe we can get into at another time that might bear looking at, particularly for people who do cook a lot. New ways to cook and to make hot water, which are two of the biggest users. Another big user is your refrigerator. And if it's a new one, you're in good shape. But if it's like more than 5 years old, you could probably save a considerable amount of energy that way. Enough for me.
And when I signed up for the energy saving program that says you'll pay a premium between 4 p.m. and 9 p.m., I put labels on the dishwasher and the washer and the dryer saying, do not use between 4 and 9 p.m. It saved me several times.
I just signed up, and some easy things that I just added were telecommuting. I'm telecommuting right now. But also things like combining trips. The carbon tracker, it seems to me like it is less about your relative use of energy than it is about giving some tips for how you can reduce your energy. So it seems to me, just at first glance, to be a very easy way to offer suggestions at your pace and comfort level to reduce your carbon footprint, as opposed to shoulding you into doing something that you may not be comfortable doing.
It's very it's very Episcopalian that way. There's no shame, no chastisement. It's, you know, just here's some ideas. Do anything that you do will be a help. Anything.
I have a question to Erica's point. Erica, would it still be better, because I've also sometimes seen things in green mags that using the old appliance instead of throwing it out right away, or, you know, throwing it out even to get the better, more efficient model, is sometimes the preferred option. So say with a fridge, do you really think it's better to just get a new, really efficient fridge and put the other in landfill, or not?
I think it's always better to recycle it, and there are places that would recycle it. You don't want to landfill it, and there are ways to recycle it. But the fridges are a good example because there's been over the years just a tremendous amount of improvement in them. I think the curve may have flattened off fairly recently. So if your fridge is, you know, not too old, it's still probably good. But, you know, people do tend to hang on to fridges for a while. And if it's 10 years old, you can certainly do considerably better with a new one. But I do think the kicker, and the answer to your question, Phil, is figure out how to recycle it. Don't just put it in the basement or, you know, take it to the dump, because often what will happen is it'll end up somewhere else. And not even just a landfill problem, but also it'll still be in use. So it's not like you're replacing it. It's just like you're buying another one.
Hey, Phil, I just bought a refrigerator last year because mine was 19 years old. Didn't realize it was that old, but my electricity bill was going up and up, and I'm like, what is going on? And so when I bought a new one, the people, Home Depot came and they picked it up and they take it to a recycling place. So same thing with like dishwashers and stuff. And now my electricity bill is much better. So I didn't realize that it was sucking up so much energy, kilowatts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a good question to ask. If you're going to buy something from a store, will they take care of the recycling, whether it's furniture or appliances? I think many of them will do that, which is helpful. But you need to ask before you pay.
Diane, another energy hog that we found in our home was our water heater. So when we changed out the water heater, we had a decrease of energy use, just to make a note.
Yeah, that's another one. Washer, dryer, yeah, those as well.
Also on the water heater, I can't do it here at my condo because people take showers at different times, but if you're in your own home, where you know when you're taking showers, you could put a timer on it so that it doesn't keep on running the hot water through all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, gas is getting just as expensive too.
Yeah. Well, I know in Europe for years and years, they've had a device where you can get the hot water right away because it's at that source. From that source in the shower. And I don't know if that's something that we've been doing, or I know it doesn't seem to happen in the condo we have, but anyway, that might be another option. It might cost a little bit, but once again, it saves. And
there are this is another area where there's a lot of new technology in the form of heat pump water heaters. And in fact, in some communities, I don't know whether San Diego is considering this or not, but they've actually moved in their building codes to all electric homes for new residential construction. And in that case, things like induction stoves and those heat pump water heaters are becoming more nearly standard equipment because they're very efficient, and you might not even need gas at all. So they're environmentally friendly, and it's also good to remember that the California Building Code is moving us all toward net zero energy by, I forget whether it's 2020 or 2025, but it's very close, and all the new builders are recognizing that. So heat pump water heaters, take a look.
Good to know. Thank you.
Vanessa, you're still muted.
I think Vanessa was trying to speak.
I'm trying to find her. Let's see, Vanessa. Here we go.
Hold on, Vanessa.
Go ahead, Vanessa. I unmuted you.
Sorry. I'm saying that we just installed solar panels.
That's great. That is wonderful. I guess one of my pet peeves is when people say, well, you know, we have the whole desert to put panels on. And that's so frustrating, especially we lived in the desert for a while. And it's almost like saying there's nothing important in the desert. And there is. There's a lot of loss of life, both animals and plants, when huge solar arrays are developed. So it's really helpful when people can have, there's a technical term for it. I'm sure Erica has it in her head, but you know, the point source for solar panels right in your own backyard, literally.
It's certainly true that if people can put in rooftop solar, that is a really, and especially in San Diego with our peak pricing, it's a very efficient way to go. And there are ways to build solar panels out in big swaths of land that don't harm that land, because coexisting is an important part of the answer also. Yeah, okay. I feel like I'm talking too much. We can talk more about this in a couple of weeks.
I was just going to say that when San Diego Gas and Electric sent out the comparison bills before you had to decide which plan you wanted to be on, when you took all three plans, there was exactly $1 per year difference in which plan I went with. So I just let them automatically go to the peak plan. But because I'm retired and I'm home all the time, my use per time of day, I mean, I've always done the laundry first thing in the morning, and it's in the building. It's not on my bill anyway. And I don't have a dishwasher, and I don't have my own washer and dryer. So I use very little. I use about, when they do the comparison between my home and other homes in my area, I usually come in the lower third of the bottom category, so that I don't feel like there's a lot I can do to improve that. And when they call and say, you could save, they keep trying to talk me into solar, which is amazing because I live in an apartment building where I couldn't possibly do that. But when they say my bill is under $120 a month, even in the middle of the winter when I have my little gas heater on, it doesn't get up that high. So I think there has to be other things maybe that I'm doing, and I don't know what they are. So I'm going to go on this tracker and see if it has other suggestions for where I can cut more than I already do. I'm in an old building built in 1922, so the building's almost 100 years old. And just by being an old building like that, we save more energy because we don't have the things that newer buildings build in. My normal bill in the summertime is about $30 a month for gas and electric. And in the winter, when the gas heater's on, it goes up to $60 or $65. So I don't think energy use is one of the things that in an old building that necessarily is going to be very helpful to creation care. I would love to have the San Francisco system of compost being picked up, just like your garbage and trash is picked up every week and taken to some central place. That I would like to lobby for, that San Diego would adopt the same regulations they have in San Francisco.
And meanwhile, Paula Holland shared on the chat that Food to Soil, Food to the number 2 Soil, is a collective for composting for people who live in apartments or condos. And I know I'm going to look into that. And we'll add that, Paula, to the information on the article that we put in the e-bulletin as well.
Can I ask Diane or whoever on the question of, non-electricity related or maybe electricity related carbon, things like airplanes, when we get back to that, assuming they recover and whatnot, the idea of buying carbon offsets, can somebody speak to that? Is that an effective tool?
Well, it depends on who you talk to. I think there is an organization, a lobbying group that's trying to get more carbon offsets in legislation, and I know our state, I believe, uses carbon offsets as well. I'd say research, for the best information, research as much as you can, because it has its benefits in some ways, but it also has its detriments. I think the thing that's most attractive is that everybody gets money back from the bad behavior of the big utilities and other businesses that use carbon. So Erica has some other ideas as well. Erica, you want to share?
There we go. Yes. So I happen to be a fan of offsets, and Diane is correct that there are some issues to be aware of. But I also think what she was describing is the statewide cap and trade program, which is different from what we as individuals would do. And I'm going to send around another link to another Tiny Climate podcast that I did. My friend is the Tiny Climate Challenge maven. And I actually did one with her on Good Traveler Offset Program, which I found and really love. And it turned out that her husband actually invented it at the San Diego airport. It is an offset program managed by Rocky Mountain Institute. And if anyone of you are familiar with the name of Amory Lovins, he has been doing really good planet thinking for a very long time. And Rocky Mountain Institute is his organization. So I'm going to send around this link, and it describes in the little podcast form how my part of it is how I used this and why I picked this particular program. There is a previous podcast, which I can send around as well, which is how they invented it. So I think offsets have a lot, to be said for them. There are some ones that I don't agree with, where they're trying to sell you renewable energy over the wires, and that's an offset program that really results in more coal power being purchased. So there are some things to look for. But if you use a reputable program, and particularly for travel, although the Good Traveler can be used for car travel as well as air travel, I think you're in decent shape. So let me, again, stop talking and send this around.
And as an interim activity, I guess you could say, as an interim solution, I don't think we have much choice. We're going to fly, we're going to drive, we're going to use gas and coal, unfortunately. But in any way that we can prevent or avoid it, it's our responsibility. I think that's my personal belief.
So this is Richard and Carolyn. The last 2 trips that we've taken that involve flying, we have gone to that Good Traveler and figured out our carbon offset or whatever the thing is that we figure out. And then we've taken that money and sent it to Jubilee Economics Ministries. So it's a local group that they've presented at the cathedral before, and they are using it to plant trees in Mexico, I think in Chiapas. So
Van Ham, that's
yeah,
charge.
So that's what we've done our last 2 trips, and I'm sure there are other groups like that. So.
Well, that's similar to the Bishop of Oregon, who was talking about the program that they have.
It's great to plant trees with that money. That's a big thing for me.
I wonder if those of us who go to conferences from time to time can lobby with the organizers of the conferences to do Zoom rather than actually traveling. We're managing now to do this. Why not continue? We could have a significant effect on air travel.
Yeah, Penny, I just want to totally support that. And Mary's has one of her Catholic conferences that they will be virtual. And I guess they're one of the only ones that's going to go ahead with it. So, because there's logistical things obviously involved, but I think you're totally right. This whole experience, one of the upsides is we're learning some new models of behavior that we can integrate post-COVID, hoping we have a real post-COVID. So yeah, very, very good point.
Well, unless there are any other questions, there are 3 minutes to 10. So thank you so much for your attention, your great ideas, your support, and we will be sending out more information through the e-bulletin, and watch for Simpler Living activities later on in the fall, late summer or fall. Thanks very much.